Okay, so I want to go through another mod I'm currently working on. Now, I've done a fair amount of work off screen. I will show you the basics, but just because it takes it takes me time to mess with models, I'm gonna just kind of show you the basics of what I had to do for it so you can figure it out, but I don't want to make you watch the whole process because it's gonna take forever. But basically, the idea of this mod is I hate what Skrag looks like. He's horrible looking. I like ogres. I think they look ugly, but like not in a horribly annoying way. But Scrag is the exception to that. He looks terrible. So I just wanted to do a few things with him, mostly cover up his face and kind of cover up his body a bit, and also cover up those horrible stumps. They're pretty gruesome for me. So let me just show you what I've been working with. Now, first of all, there's a bit of Scrag, there's a bit of Ogre Hunters mixed in, there's a bit of Man-Eater stuff, there's a bit of Iron Guts accessories, you have Butcher body parts, so I have a lot of parts to him. But the big thing is that Scrag is a humanoid 13D, and all other ogres are humanoid 13. So in order to get all these parts to work on this file, I'm using Asset Editor, which is great. You should use it to do. This is what I use for all of my editing of models. Okay, so let me show you the process behind this kind of stuff. So if I was going to make this guy again, let's say I'm just going to let's just put this body on him first. So you can see kind of the basics of some of these things. Okay, so first off, we load up our packs and we go to the variant models. And I want to find, so HU13, like I said, is most ogres, but Scrag is special. So I'm going to actually modify his personal one here. So I'm going to say Scrag rigid model. This is what I like to edit. I never use the WS models. Okay, so here he is, and he's gruesome looking, and I hate what he looks like. But again, I don't want to change too much of him. I just want to fix all of this. So what I want to do is I'm going to import. So I'm going to hit this button here, and I'm going to import my hunter bodies. Okay. So, well, actually, to make it a little different from it so I can tell it apart, let's say lead belcher or something like that. Okay, it's still the same basic thing, but let's say I want to import Belcher body 1. So I want this body. Okay, so currently these are just reference models. So what you can do is you can right click on it. You can do individual parts as you want, but I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm going to say make editable. So now all of these parts, so I can hide Scrag real quick. Now I have this. You can see the underlying skeleton here. So what I need to do is I need to line up these lead belcher body parts here, and I need to line them up here. So what I'm going to do is click here, and this is the move, and I'm just going to move it up. Oops, I did not do enough. I controlled Z. Let's get all of the parts. I'm going to move the parts up until they look good. Okay, so let's say somewhere about there. Okay, so now I have them kind of in the correct spot. That seems okay. Now, what I could also do at the same time, so I don't have to worry about the head later on, is I could have imported the head as well and then moved all of them together. Since the head will actually line up correctly, I could have done that, but I wanted to show you what we could do if we don't do that. So I have this body. Let's say I'm going to use the whole body for Scrag. The only difference is I want to leave this portion. Well, what I can do is I can view this, and we can look at the parts in this model. Now, everything related to Scrag, I'm deleting. So in this case, I can either split them, or I can hit F2. F2 brings up their individual little triangles, and I'm just going to select all of them and delete them. That way, I find that like just quicker in general. If I can easily do that, I do it that way. Otherwise, I just split the model. So now, when we look at Scrag, he has some parts missing. Now, let's take a look at the other part of Scrag. So again, I have the eye. I viewed only this portion. So let's say I want to keep all these chains here connecting him, but I want everything else gone. I mean, again, in my model, I didn't do that. I had other parts, but let's just say I want everything here gone. Well, in that case, again, I can do that, or F2, or I can split the mesh into logical parts. Now this one's a little bit slow, but it also is going to give me a little bit more control over like not having to worry about those chain bits. So now you see a lot of different parts. I mean, there's a lot of them. So I'm just going to select here and delete them. And I'm going to do the same up here, just being careful around the chains. And you notice we have like his mouth and all this crap. Ugh, his mouth is one of the worst parts about him for me. Okay. And again, I've deleted all those parts there that I wanted. Okay, I'm leaving this chains here. So I'm holding down Alt and using the left mouse to kind of move around. I'm going to delete that part, delete it, clicking and deleting these things. That way I can kind of have a little bit of control. And we have that little piece there and a little piece there. Okay, now even if you miss a part, it probably won't be noticeable, but we just have this thing here. Okay, now I want to recombine all those parts. So I just do the collection here, and I'm gonna merge them. Okay, so now I have that. I have the other bit, which is the blood and crap here. So this is all that's left of Skrag. Now I have the lead belcher's body all set up. So now it looks like he's dragging it. But we need a face, a head. So let's import again and let's bring in a head. Let's say instead of that, let's say a man-eater. Again, I'm not really, this isn't what I'm doing. I just wanted to show you it and do something quick. All right, so let's say man-eater 1. So I double clicked on that and now I need to drag this in. But first I need to make it editable. Okay, and I'm going to select them and I'm just going to drag it until it lines up with what I want. Now, some heads don't really go well together. Like if you notice this one, it's from a different model and it's slightly different colors. And it has that little gap. Well, there's things you can do to that. Like I can scale this. Okay, so let's say I want to scale it up just a bit, everything up by 10%. So it's 1.1, that would be 10%. Tab 1.1, 1.1, apply. Now I have a bigger head and it's kind of filling that gap a bit more. Again, this isn't necessarily great looking, but hey, it meets the requirement. Okay, got a heck of a tan line. Okay, so now we have that. Well, that's cool and all. I mean, I know I have a bit hanging over here, so let's maybe fix it a little bit better. Okay, really kind of get that in there. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's still not amazing, but it is what it is. Okay, now here's the problem. When you go to animate this thing, so I want to use the original animations on mine because I still want this so he doesn't lose the whole style of him. But also, I want to make it as compatible as possible. And animations are set on the same table that like their stats are. So I don't want to make changes to animation if I can avoid it whenever I do a model. Sometimes there's no avoiding it, but I like to avoid it as much as possible for other people. I don't do any mods that change stats, but I know a lot of people do, so I try to make my mods available there. So if I hit animation, I can see how it would work in game. If you notice, it doesn't look good, okay? And that's because these guys are on a different skeleton. So what I need to do then is I need to change all of these skeletons to fit onto the new one. So one way that you can do it is you can select all the ones that, oh, not Skrag. So here, man-eater, man-eater. So all the models that are on a different one, I can do them all together at once or do them individually. Sometimes I do them individually, sometimes all at once, it depends. All right, so I'm gonna re-rig. Okay, now there's a lot of these things, don't worry too much. Let's auto map based on name and see what kind of issues happen. Okay, now because this is something that came up because notice he has hands. Oops. Okay, so because he has hands and not the blades, he has fingers that need to be mapped somewhere. Now, I took care of that by keeping the blade, so it wasn't a big deal, but this gives him a good idea. -1 means it's not mapped to anything. So what we can do is we can click finger index left, okay, and we need to match it to the closest thing available. So there's a left hand above it. we might have to just do that, but we'll see. So one thing is you have this root, and in his model, when you have more complicated models like his, where he has the little goblins or whatever they're called, these actually are describing all those little goblins placements. But I'm going to go down until I get to where he himself is being modeled. And that is actually, looks like around here, spine 0, belly, and all that jazz. So I'm going to go to his left arms and stuff. Clav, upper arm left, lower arm left, hand left. Okay, well, hand left is as low as it goes, so I'm going to have to match everything to hand left. Now notice, when I do the same one, it doesn't really let you do that, so you have to click and then go to the one you want. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have to do this for all of these. And this isn't going to be great, but it's going to at least show the process. Because again, this skeleton doesn't have fingers, didn't need to model them. And so we're kind of stuck doing the best we can do. So this isn't going to be good, but bear with it. All right, so now we have the right hand. So we're going to go down to the right and do the same thing. We're just mapping them to the right hand over and over again. If there was a better one, we'd do that, but I think right hand's about as good as we're going to get out of it. Okay, so all those fingers have been mapped. Now let's look for more negative ones. Okay, so we have the necklace. All right, necklace. Well, if we look at the neck, that might be a decent one. We have a necklace right there. That actually is going to work. So necklace 0 or neck fat, that would have been another option. Okay, so we took care of all the negative one. Nope, we didn't. Skirt right. Okay, so we have trousers back right, skirt front. We have front right here. I guess it depends on where this is, and you might have to change it if you don't like what you get, but let's say it's the front right. All right, I'll click that. And then shield. Shield on these guys is their belly, so I'm going to look for their belly, belly mid. All right, so that's as good as I'm going to get. Their bag, what is his bag? It's on his belt, so, or near his belt. So I'm going to have to go to something similar to that. We have spine, chest, trousers. Well, in this case, potentially, it's maybe going to be something on his waist. So you can do like a chain if this bag was on like the back or something. So we can maybe do a chain or something like that. We can also always just go above it and go to a root or something. Whatever. This isn't a great one for it, so who cares? You just have to play around with it. So let's just say it's like the skirt back as well. I don't know, something like that. Whatever, we hit OK. That has now remapped it. Now when we do the animation, you'll notice, actually it came out pretty decently. This bag is the only thing I would say is going to be causing issues. And so we could just go through and delete that bag if we didn't like it. Like, I could also play around a bit to fix it, but you can see this thing in action, and even with the fingers mapped the way they are, this actually looks not that bad. So he is now mapped appropriately. What you do then is you go and you hit save, and you'll need to create a new pack file. I have one down here. It's just my reskins, and you'll just hit save and you save it, and it saves it as its name. I usually go through and change it to like an 11 instead of an 01. That way I know which ones I've changed and which ones aren't changed, basically. So that is pretty much done. The last thing you want to do is you want to generate level of details. So auto generate loads. Okay. Now, one thing I noted on this, and now you'll see, you can actually look at, so here's LOD 0, which is the main one, obviously the best one. You have LOD 1. Now, in Warhammer 3, don't ask me why, but in Warhammer 3, the LODs come in super, I don't know, super late or like super early. So what I've been doing with this is, especially in this first one, you can change where the camera distance comes on, but if you just change this to a 1, then that's gonna fix some issues, because if you notice, like here, there's some missing parts because it's just a lower quality model. I found that In Warhammer 3, I've had to do this on Asset Editor, where in Warhammer 1, I didn't, or Warhammer 2, I didn't have to have that issue. I just generated it and boom, I was good to go. But we can change that. So we have that one. And you know what? Who cares? It's a one guy. I'm going to change all of these details to be one. But let me just show you what load 3 looks like. It actually doesn't look much worse than our level of detail 1. So that's weird. Anyway. So we have that taken care of. Okay, now that should hopefully fix any kind of visual issues that were happening. I was seeing that in game on my model. Okay, so now we hit save, we're good to go. Okay, we've done everything we needed in Asset Editor. Now let's talk about creating the mod for this. So going to Rusted Pack File Manager, I'm going to have a new pack file. I'm going to add from pack file. Okay, so in my Steam Apps Common Warhammer 3 data, I am going to go down to data. And I'm going to, well, there's a few things I need to do. In my data, in this case, actually, it's data 3 for him. I need to change around some things because now that I've changed what the model looks like, let's go back to the one I'm actually doing. Now that I've changed the model the way I want it to look, okay, I need to change the portrait as well because the portrait's horrible, obviously, and doesn't match the model. So I'm going to have to do a few things. One is I'm going to have to find those portraits. Normally they're in data, but for him and some other models, it's in data 3. So let's go to data 3 really quick, and we're going to go down to UI. And this is the same in data, just normal data. It's just that I know that these guys' portraits are elsewhere. We go to portraits, faction leaders, and we're looking for Skrag. So we're going to double click there. I'm going to change the portrait for the porthole as well for Skrag, Ogre Kingdoms, Skrag. And then I'm going to do the same for the unit one. So all three, so most units and stuff, they have a porthole and a unit. But for faction leaders, they also have the faction leader one. And they're all a little bit different. So Ogre Kingdom, Skrag. Okay, so I have those, and as is, you can see the different ones. And I'm going to change those things. Notice they're all PNGs. Okay, now what else I want to do is actually get the model in game. So I'm going to add from pack file. And I need to change the variant mesh definition, most likely, because usually, not usually, sometimes they use the rigid model and sometimes they use the WS model. But either way, I'm going to go to campaign variants. So campaign variants, sometimes campaign variants 3, depending. And I'm going to go to variant mesh definitions, and I'm going to look for Skrag. I'm going to actually Skrag. Okay. So there's the variant mesh definition. Now you can see how he's described. So the nobblers, that's what they're called, and kind of the weapons and all that jazz for the different nobblers. But here, this is just him himself. And you notice it's the WS model. Okay, so we'll change that in a bit. But before we do that, I'm going to add from pack file. And on my desktop, this is where I have my my mods for Warhammer 3, the reskin, basically where I save all my asset editor stuff. You can do it wherever you want. I just have it on my desktop. So Warhammer 3 reskin pack, and I'm going to go down to my Skrag model I just created. Notice I've renamed it so to 11. Okay, now you can also rename it at this stage if you want by clicking on it, left clicking on it, give it a little bit of time to load, right click, rename, and you can change it to whatever you want. But I've already changed it to the 11 that I want. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my mesh definition and I'm going to change this. So if you look, Ogre, Skrag, so all of it's the same, whether it's the rigid or the WS model, but it's variant mesh. This tells you where to find it. Variant mesh right here, variant models, HU13D, Ogre, Ogre Skrag, Ogre Skrag WS model, but I want it to be this rigid model. So I'm going to change that underscore, it's 111 dot, instead of rigid, WS model, rigid model. So sometimes it will, press enter, and that will then just finish that off for it. So this now matches what I want. Okay, so he's now in game. That's working fine. That's all it took to get him in game. But now we're going to do a couple more things to just kind of pretty it up a bit. Because most of the time, you're not actually looking at the model, you're looking at the unit portrait. And I really don't want to look at this for a whole campaign. Absolutely do not want to look at any of those things. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract this. Now you can extract it to wherever you want. I've already extracted these ahead of time. And you're going to do that for each of these portraits, and they're going to be extracted. Okay, then you go to where you have them extracted. So in my case, it's in kind of near my data. I have it in my screwing around folder, UI, portraits, faction leaders, portholes, and units. So those are those things. I'm going to pull them up in in Gimp, my photo editing go-to, as much as I hate the name of it. And I already took a snip from this model here, and I'm actually going to utilize that as well. The reason I like to take it from asset editor as much as possible is that you have this blue background and it makes it way easier to edit out than kind of the more complex stuff that's happening in game. So I am going to like open. So I'm going to open this full file. Actually, I can do that since I'm already here. So I'm going to open this thing. I don't remember if it's got Gimp as its automatic one. So if it doesn't, we have that. I'm going to do the same thing for the porthole. I'm going to open with Gimp. And I'm going to do the last one, units. And I'm going to open this with Gimp. Okay. So I have these three things opened up. I saved this, if I remember right. Let's see. Let me go to my downloads. Skrag, yes, I did. Oh, I don't want to open in that. I'm going to open with Gimp as well. That way I have this like snip. Okay. Now, a few things to note. If you forget, you can always check it by saying like image, scale image. Okay, it's a 60 by 130 is all of these ones. I don't remember which one it is. I think that's a unit card. This is the porthole image. If you scale image, it is a, whoa, that's weird. Okay, they used to be circles in Warhammer 2. Okay, this is my first Warhammer 3 one I've done. It's a 300 by 164. They used to be 256 by 256. So that's odd. Okay, fair enough. And I'm going to scale this one, and it is 85 by 115. Okay, so basically I'm going to utilize this picture and do all of them, or at least maybe I'll have to redo it for this because the portrait in the unit cards is often kind of more like that. So that's okay. I can always do that as well. So we'll take care of these two then first. So this one here is a scale image 300 by 164. So I'm going to take this image and I am going to first off, I probably want to just delete anything that's blue. So it's been a while since I've done this, to be honest. So let me select. There is a select for okay, maybe I can do that and that should be good enough. I can actually select it by color. So let me take a look at that. Okay, had to do a quick Google search. They've changed this since the last time I used it. So let's do select by color. Okay, there we go. And I selected it and I just deleted it. Now I just have him. This will enable me to kind of put him onto the background that already exists. So that's one thing that I want to do. Plus, if you notice the porthole, which isn't a hole, it's a rectangle nowadays, but whatever, is empty behind it. Okay, so again, if we take a look at the image, it is 300 by 164. Basically, I want to get something close to that with this image when I scale it. So I am going to take my image and I'm going to scale it. And I'm going to bring its width down to, I don't know, something about like 350 or so. Okay, so then I have something a little bit closer. Now I can select him. Ooh. So now I'm going to select, right click, and I'm going to do inverse. So I'm selecting him himself, Control C, and I'm going to post him right there on top of the other one. Now I could definitely delete the other one as well, but if I can cover him up, like, who cares, right? So there he is. Again, this might not be perfect. You can screw around with it as much as you want, but I think that's going to be good for now for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say File, and I'm going to overwrite the previous PNG. So the reason I posted it into the one that already existed, was it allows me to overwrite it, and it's there. So I have now overwritten it. I'm going to do the same thing with these two, but just to spare you the time, I'll avoid doing it, okay? Now, once I have all of those things done, well, actually, I'll do it off camera. Give me one sec. Okay, so I have played around with it just a little bit, and I now have his different, so this is the unit card, and I have this. Now, one thing to be aware of with unit cards is sometimes, sometimes, okay, there we go. You'll notice that the top is often a little bit kind of empty, and that's because the top really kind of gets cut off, it seems, a lot. So you do need to make sure that this is moved down the same kind of level. Otherwise, it just looks really wrong. So if you notice, all I did was cover up the other guy. Okay. So now we have this taken care of, this one, and they are all good to go. So I'm going to overwrite that one, and I'm going to file overwrite that PNG. Okay, so those have now been overwritten. What we need to do is we need to get them into the game, or into our mod. So we have our faction leader, and I'm just going to rename it something briefly just so that I can tell which one it is, because sometimes I really don't trust that the import overwrites it. So what I do is I just I leave them in until I can import the other one so that it has the same folder structure. Otherwise, it won't have the same folder structure and it will be this whole pain. So I'm going to go to the faction leader one first. I'm going to right click. I'm going to add file, which normally we do like add pack file. That one, it was file. So I'm going to go back to where I have this saved. In mine, it's the screwing around folder, faction there. So what was once this picture, well, what was once this picture is now this picture. Okay, and now, which again might not be a perfect match for the style of them, but I would say that the style of them in game is actually a little weird for Skrag anyway. Now I'm going to do the same thing, add file for the porthole. So there's that. And I'm going to do the same for the unit card, add file. Units there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and delete those old ones just because I don't need them anymore. So I'm going through, delete. I just left them there again for the folder to stay. If I deleted one, it would delete the whole folder that has it in there because there's nothing else in that folder. Okay, so these are all in game. I have the rigid model properly named I like to do it as a different one than the original, just so that, yeah, and if somebody's using the old one in some way, then it doesn't override it. I then do my variant mesh to do the new named one, which is 11, so that's good. The pictures are all set, so that's good. So the last thing I need to do is I need to save pack file as, I'm going to just name it currently Andy. Doesn't matter. That's my name. That's why. I guess I can do like masked mustachios. Let's say Skrag Reskin. That's what the name's going to be, so I might as well do that. So I'm going to save it. Okay, so that thing is taken care of. The last thing I need to do is create a PNG. So if we go to my other one, I've already talked about this for uploading your mod, but again, just to make sure that if this isn't the first one, if this is the first one you're watching, then you know what the heck you're doing. We have this PNG here, and just to show you open in Gimp from another one that I did, you always need these images here, scale image to be a 256 by 256 PNG. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, I can take an in-game model if I want. I can take a picture of him like this. It doesn't matter. But we just need to create a picture showing him off so that people know what he looks like. So here's that. I'm going to go ahead and save as Skrag, the new save. Yeah, it's fine. And I'm going to open that thing with Gimp. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take this image and I'm going to scale this image. Well, let's take a square selection, 256. Okay, I'm going to need to scale this down a decent amount. So let's say I'm going to scale it down to the widest point, this thing, the width. I'm going to say it's like 350 or something. Okay, now we have that. So I could maybe do it just a little bit more. Image, scale image. I'm going to bring this down to 325. Okay, that's a little bit better. And I could probably scale this image. I'm going to drop it down to 300. Okay, there I get his feet now. Okay, so we have that. I'm going to go ahead and take my image and I'm going to crop to selection and I'm going to save this as, I'm going to go to my, I'm going to not save it as, excuse me, I'm going to export as so that I have it as a PNG. So I'm going to go to where this is installed, where my data is. Common, Warhammer 3, data. Okay, so here's that PNG. I'm going to change this one to the name of Skrag Reskin. I'm going to have it .png, get rid of that pack. So it's named exactly the same as my pack. So export. Export. Okay, so I have that taken care of. Now that I have my mod and my image in my data folder, I'm going to go here. A thing to note as well, and I'm going to, not this one, Skrag Reskin. I am going to upload it to the workshop. And we're good to go. We can go to my workshop and take a look at it if we need. I'm obviously gonna kind of fix the name and add a description and everything and add this video. But a few things to note too is that let's say you want to play this with another person who has this mod installed. What you'll want to do when you mod, you should move these out of data once you've uploaded it. Otherwise, it will basically not like it. So you should subscribe to your own mod and you should delete these from your data folder. I actually store them as a separate folder for all my mods so I can keep track of them. But that's just something to be aware of. It will say that you don't have the same version as your friend who you're trying to play with. And obviously, I play this game exclusively nowadays with basically just my wife or my friends, so I don't play it solo. So that's an important aspect for me. But yeah, so you have your mod all set up. So that one's a little bit more obviously in depth than the other one I did because it's a little bit more modding that we had to do. But hopefully it gives you an idea of kind of what was going on with this mod. And again, I just wanted to show you it with some other full thing because it took me several hours to get this all working the way I wanted it to. So anyway, thanks for watching.